I died choking on a piece of pork in my instant ramen at 3 a.m. while binge-watching a terrible K-drama about arranged marriages. The irony wasn't lost on me when I woke up in what was clearly the most expensive bedroom I'd ever seen. Miss Sophie, you're going to be late for your flight." A woman in a crisp blazer was shaking me awake. I sat up, immediately noticing that my voice sounded different when I groaned. "What flight? Your flight too? Oh dear, did you hit your head again?" She pressed a hand to my forehead. "I'm Janet, your assistant. You're Sophie Chen, and you're flying to meet your fiancés today." Sophie Chen, fiancés, plural. I stumbled to the bathroom and nearly had a heart attack. Gone was my average face and mousy brown hair. Instead, I was looking at someone who belonged in skincare commercials. Clear skin, thick black hair, and the kind of features that suggested expensive genetics. "This is definitely not normal," I muttered. "Sophie, are you talking to yourself again?" "Again? Just processing," I called back. "Janet, remind me why I'm getting married?" A pause. "Because your parents arranged it, dear. The merger, remember?" Right, the merger. That sounded ominous. 20 minutes later, I was on a private jet trying to piece together my new life from Janet's chattering. Apparently, I was Sophie Chen, 25, daughter of tech mogul Richard Chen. I was flying to meet my 5 fiancés, the Williams brothers, whose family owned a massive agricultural empire. "The Williams boys are quite accomplished," Janet was saying. "There's David, 28, the CEO. Then Marcus, 27, handles operations. James, 26, runs R&D. Tyler, 24, manages logistics. And Sam, 23, deals with sustainability initiatives. And I'm marrying all of them because the merger, of course. Chentech and Williams Agriculture joining forces. Your marriage ensures the partnership stays in the family." So I was basically a human contract. "Janet," I said slowly, "what exactly do our companies do?" She looked at me strangely. "Well, your father's company develops agricultural technology, and the Williams family owns most of the farmland in 3 states. Together, you'd control both the technology and the land." "That sounds like a monopoly." "That sounds like good business." Great. I'd been reincarnated as a trust fund baby being used to help create a food monopoly. This was either the worst isekai plot ever, or someone up there had a very twisted sense of humor. The Williams estate looked like someone had taken a southern plantation house and given it a modern makeover. It was beautiful, in that we definitely have generational wealth way that made me slightly uncomfortable. "Just remember," Janet whispered as we approached the front door. "Be polite, smile, and try not to trip." I immediately tripped on the front step. Strong hands caught me before I could faceplant into the expensive-looking entryway. I looked up into warm hazel eyes belonging to a guy who looked like he'd stepped off a farm-to-table restaurant advertisement. "Steady there," he said with an amused smile. "You must be Sophie. I'm David Williams." "Hi," I said, still gripping his arms. "Sorry, I'm not usually this clumsy. Actually, that's a lie. I'm always this clumsy." He laughed, a genuine surprised sound. Honest, I like that. The next few minutes were a parade of ridiculously attractive men who all looked like they'd been cast in a wholesome family drama. Marcus had the serious, competent air of someone who could run a Fortune 500 company. James had engineer written all over him, complete with slightly messy hair and paint-stained fingers. Tyler looked like he could bench press a tractor, and Sam had the earnest environmentalist thing down pat. "So," I said over lunch, after I'd managed to spill soup on myself and accidentally call Marcus by James's name twice. "This whole 5-husband situation, how does that work exactly?" The brothers exchanged looks. "It's traditional in our family," David explained carefully. "Ensures the business stays unified across generations." "Right, but do you all live in the same house? Do you have a schedule? How do taxes work?" Sam snorted into his water glass. "Did you just ask about our tax situation?" "Look, if I'm going to be married to 5 people, I want to know the logistics. Do I file jointly with all of you? Do we need a special accountant?" These are surprisingly practical questions," James observed. "I'm a practical person. Speaking of which, what exactly happens after we get married? Do I move here? Do you all move to the city? Do we buy a bigger house with 5 master bedrooms?" We hadn't really discussed living arrangements," Marcus admitted. Well, we should probably figure that out. Also, I should mention up front that I'm a terrible cook. I leave dishes in the sink, and I watch true crime documentaries at weird hours." Tyler grinned. "You're not what we expected." "Yeah, I get that a lot. What were you expecting?" "Someone more traditional?" David suggested. Wants to be a housewife traditional, or doesn't ask about tax implications traditional? Both? Well, you're out of luck on both counts." I can barely keep a plant alive, and I have opinions about corporate tax structures. They were all staring at me now. Is that bad? I asked. No, Sam said quickly. It's just different. Different. Story of my life, apparently. After 3 days at the Williams estate, I was starting to get suspicious. Not about the brothers. They were actually pretty great. David was thoughtful and made sure I always had coffee in the morning. Marcus had a dry sense of humor and taught me to play poker. James showed me his lab, where he was developing some kind of revolutionary fertilizer. Tyler took me on tours of the property and patiently answered all my questions about sustainable farming. Sam and I bonded over our shared love of documentaries about corporate malfeasance. No, I was suspicious about the whole setup. Janet, I cornered my assistant in the guest room. I need you to be honest with me about something. Of course, Sophie. This marriage, it's really just about merging the companies, right? She fidgeted with her tablet. Well, yes, but what? Your parents and Mr. and Mrs. Williams thought you'd all be compatible. What? How could they possibly know that? I've never met these guys before. Haven't you? I stared at her. What do you mean? Nothing. I thought maybe you'd met at some corporate function. Janet, have I met them before? She was definitely avoiding eye contact now. Perhaps you should ask your father. My father is in Tokyo until next week. Then perhaps you should wait. Janet, I used my most serious voice, which admittedly wasn't very intimidating. What aren't you telling me? She sighed. The truth is, this marriage arrangement isn't just about the merger. What else is it about? Your parents, they've been concerned about your lack of interest in dating. I blinked. They arranged a marriage to 5 guys because I don't date enough? They thought perhaps you'd be more interested in relationships if you had this. Options. Multiple compatible partners to choose from. I sat down heavily on the bed. My parents pimped me out to 5 strangers because they think I'm going to die alone? That's a very harsh way to put it. Is there a better way to put it? Janet was quiet for a moment. They love you, Sophie. They just want you to be happy. And they think I can only be happy if I'm married? They think you might be happier with companionship. So they picked 5 guys at random and decided I'd marry all of them. They weren't random. The Williams family specifically requested this arrangement. That stopped me cold. Requested it? Yes, they... Oh dear, I wasn't supposed to say that. Janet, what do you mean they requested this arrangement? She looked like she wanted to disappear into the floor. Perhaps you should speak to the Williams boys about this. Oh, I definitely will. I found all 5 brothers in what they called the strategy room, which was basically a conference room with a lot of charts about crop yields and market projections. They looked up when I burst in. We need to talk, I announced. Everything okay? David asked, immediately standing up. That depends. Janet just told me that your family specifically requested this marriage arrangement. What does that mean? The brothers exchanged looks. Again. Sophie, Marcus started. No, don't Sophie me. What's really going on here? Another exchange of looks. Finally, James cleared his throat. The truth is, our parents have been trying to set us all up for years. Set you up? With wives, Tyler clarified. They're concerned about the family legacy. Meaning? Meaning they think we're all going to be bachelor farmers forever and the Williams name will die out, Sam said dryly. I stared at them. So your parents arranged for you to marry me because they think you can't get wives on your own? Essentially, yes. And my parents arranged for me to marry you because they think I can't get a husband on my own. That seems to be the situation. I sat down in one of their conference chairs. This is insane. This is absolutely insane. We know, David said quietly. Do you, though? Because you all seem pretty calm about the fact that our parents basically declared us all romantically hopeless and decided to solve the problem by forcing us together. When you put it like that, it does sound rather insulting, Marcus observed. Rather insulting? Rather insulting? My voice was getting higher. They think we're all such romantic disasters that arranged marriage is the only solution. To be fair, Tyler said, I haven't been on a date in 2 years. That's not the point. The point is that they didn't even ask us what we wanted. What do you want? Sam asked quietly. That stopped me cold. What did I want? I said slowly, to make my own choices about my life, even if those choices are terrible. Fair enough, David said. So what do you want to do? I looked around at all 5 of them. They were good guys, attractive, successful, kind, funny. In any normal situation, I'd probably be thrilled to date any one of them. But this wasn't a normal situation. I want to figure out what our parents are really up to, I said, because I'm starting to think there's more to this than just combining companies and fixing our non-existent love lives. What do you mean? James asked. I mean, doesn't it seem convenient that your family owns most of the farmland in 3 states, and my father's company makes agricultural technology, and suddenly we're all getting married right when there's talk about new farming regulations? The room went very quiet. What kind of regulations? Marcus asked carefully. The kind that might limit corporate ownership of farmland, or require certain environmental standards for agricultural technology. How do you know about that? David asked. I may not remember much about Sophie's life, but I've been doing research since I got here. There's a whole movement trying to break up agricultural monopolies. And you think our marriage is related to that? I think our parents are smarter than they're pretending to be. And I think there's more to this merger than just combining companies. So what do you want to do about it? I grinned. I want to investigate. All of us together, figure out what they're really planning. That could backfire spectacularly, Marcus warned. The best plans usually do. And if we find out something we don't like, then we decide what to do about it, together, as equals, not as chess pieces in our parents' game. David smiled. You know, when they told us we were getting an arranged wife, this isn't what I expected. What did you expect? Someone more compliant? Well, you're definitely out of luck on that front. Good, he said. Compliant sounds boring. Oh, I'm definitely not boring. Fair warning, I'm probably going to be a disaster at this whole investigation thing. Then it's a good thing there are 5 of us to help, Tyler said with a grin. 6, I corrected. There are 6 of us in this now. And for the first time since I'd woken up in this weird situation, it felt like maybe that might actually be a good thing. Okay, I said the next morning, spreading papers across the Williams kitchen table like I was planning a heist instead of investigating my own engagement. Here's what we know. The brothers gathered around the table with their coffee, looking like they were humoring me, but also genuinely curious. We know that both our families have been pushing for this marriage, I continued. We know it's tied to a business merger. And we know there are new agricultural regulations coming that could affect both companies. What we don't know, Marcus added, is whether our parents are trying to get ahead of those regulations or find a way around them. Exactly, so we need more information. How do you propose we get it? James asked. Simple, we split up and investigate different angles. David, you handle the business side. Look into what deals your parents have been making recently. Marcus, your operations, so you probably know about any unusual meetings or phone calls. James, check if there have been any changes to your R&D projects lately. What about us? Tyler asked. Tyler, you're logistics, right? Look into whether there have been any unusual shipments or inventory changes. Sam, you're sustainability. See if your parents have been asking about environmental compliance stuff. And what are you going to do? Sam asked. I'm going to call my father and see how much I can get him to reveal without being suspicious. That seems like the most dangerous job, David observed. Yeah, but I'm the one he's least likely to suspect. According to everyone, Sophie was never very interested in business. Was she interested in anything? Tyler asked curiously. Good question. What was Princess Sophie interested in? Apparently, shopping and social media, I guessed. That seems like a waste of a good brain, James said. Thanks, I think. We spent the morning on our respective missions. The brothers disappeared to various parts of the estate and their offices, while I sat in the garden with my phone, trying to figure out how to interrogate my father without seeming like I was interrogating him. Sophie, sweetheart. His voice boomed through the phone when he answered. How are you getting along with the Williams boys? They're great, Dad. Really great. Actually, I wanted to ask you something. Of course, anything. I was talking to David about the merger, and I realized I don't really understand what it means for the companies. Could you explain it to me? A pause. You're interested in business now? Well, it's going to be my business too, right? After the marriage? I suppose that's true. Well, essentially, we'll be combining Chentech's agricultural innovations with Williams Agriculture's land holdings and distribution networks. That sounds like it would give us a lot of control over food production. It would give us a competitive advantage, yes. And with the new regulations Congress is talking about, that advantage would be pretty valuable, right? Another longer pause. What regulations are you referring to, Sophie? Uh-oh. Had I just revealed that I knew more than I should? Oh, just something I saw on the news about corporate farming. I didn't really understand it. I see. Well, yes, there's always regulatory uncertainty in agriculture. That's one reason why the merger makes sense. It provides stability. Stability how? Sophie, these are rather complex business matters. Perhaps we should discuss this when I'm back from Tokyo. Of course, Dad. I was just curious. How curious exactly? The way he said it made my stomach drop. What do you mean? You've never shown interest in business before. It's a bit unexpected. I guess being engaged has made me think more about the future. Yes, I suppose it would. Well, I should go. Give my regards to the Williams family. He hung up, and I stared at my phone, wondering if I'd just blown our entire investigation. How did it go? David asked, appearing beside my chair. Either really well or really badly. He's definitely suspicious about something, but I'm not sure if it's me asking questions or the regulations themselves. What did you find out? That the merger would give our companies a lot of control over food production, and that there's regulatory uncertainty that makes the merger more valuable. That's interesting. I found out something too. And what? My father has been in meetings with lobbyists for the past 3 months, specifically lobbyists who work on agricultural policy. That doesn't sound good. No, it doesn't. Come on, let's see what the others found. We gathered in the strategy room again, where the other brothers were waiting with various documents and notes. Okay, I said. What have we got? Marcus went first. I checked the meeting logs. Dad has been having weekly calls with someone from Chentech since January, way before this marriage was announced. James, the R&D budget was increased by 40% 6 months ago, specifically for projects related to crop yields and pest resistance. But here's the weird part. We were told to focus on technologies that would work specifically with Williams-owned farmland. Meaning the technology is being designed to work with our soil types, our climate conditions, our specific crops. It wouldn't be as effective on other farms. That sounds like they were planning the merger before they told us about the marriage, Tyler observed. What did you find? I asked him. Inventory changes. We've been stockpiling seeds and fertilizer like crazy. Way more than we'd need for normal operations. Sam, Dad's been asking me about environmental compliance requirements for hypothetical, large-scale operations. Specifically, what kind of regulations would apply to a company that controlled both agricultural technology and farmland distribution? I sat back in my chair. So let me get this straight. Our parents have been planning this merger for months, maybe longer. They've been developing technology specifically for Williams farmland, stockpiling supplies, lobbying on agricultural policy, and researching regulatory compliance. That's what it looks like, David said. And they told us this was all about helping us find love and combining companies for family legacy reasons. Right. But actually, they're trying to create some kind of agricultural monopoly that would let them control food production and pricing. It seems that way. I looked around at all 5 brothers. Are we okay with that? No, David said immediately. Absolutely not. It goes against everything we've worked for, Sam added. Sustainable, ethical farming doesn't involve monopolizing food production. Plus, it's probably illegal, Marcus pointed out. So what do we do about it? James asked. We confront them, I said, together. And we tell them that if they want to create an agricultural monopoly, they'll have to do it without using us as pawns. And if they don't like that? Tyler asked. Then we call off the marriage and expose their whole plan. That could destroy both companies, David warned. Better than letting them destroy fair competition in agriculture. You're willing to risk your inheritance for this? Marcus asked. I thought about it. In my old life, I'd been a broke college student eating ramen and worrying about student loans. Now I was technically an heiress to a tech fortune. Giving that up should have been terrifying. Instead, it felt liberating. Yes, I said. I'd rather be broke and ethical than rich and complicit. David smiled. You know, when our parents said we were getting an arranged wife, I never imagined she'd be willing to take down our own families. Is that a problem? No, he said. It's actually pretty attractive. Oh, well, that was unexpectedly flirty. So we're all in agreement? I asked, trying to ignore the way David was looking at me. We confront our parents and demand the truth? We're in, they said in unison. Good, because they're all coming here for dinner tomorrow night to discuss wedding plans. Tomorrow night? Sam asked. Yep, Janet just told me. Apparently, they want to finalize everything before the engagement party next week. There's an engagement party? Tyler asked. Oh yeah, didn't I mention? We're having a big public engagement party with media coverage and everything. The brothers stared at me. When were you going to tell us about that? David asked. I just found out myself, but it actually works in our favor. How? Because if they're planning to announce this publicly, they'll have to answer our questions first. They won't risk a scandal right before a big media event. Unless they're counting on us not making a scene, Marcus pointed out. Then they don't know me very well, I said with a grin. This is either going to work brilliantly or blow up spectacularly, James observed. Probably both, I agreed. But hey, at least it won't be boring. And despite everything, the deception, the manipulation, the agricultural conspiracy, I was actually looking forward to tomorrow night. After all, how often do you get to blackmail your own parents? The next evening, I spent an hour getting ready for what was essentially going to be a showdown disguised as a family dinner. I picked a dress that looked innocent but made me feel confident. If I was going to accuse both sets of parents of conspiracy, I wanted to look good doing it. Ready for this? David asked when I met the brothers in the living room. As ready as anyone can be for confronting their parents about agricultural monopolies over pot roast? We could still just go along with it, Tyler suggested. Pretend we don't know anything. And let them manipulate us into marriage fraud? No thanks. Marriage fraud? Marcus asked. That's what this is, isn't it? They're using a fake marriage to facilitate illegal business practices. When you put it like that, it sounds very dramatic, Sam said. It is dramatic. We're like the protagonists in a corporate thriller, except instead of uncovering government conspiracies, we're uncovering parental conspiracies. That's actually worse, James realized. Much worse. At least government conspiracies are impersonal. The doorbell rang, and we all looked at each other. Showtime, I said. My parents arrived first, Richard Chen, tech mogul, and Linda Chen, who looked like she'd stepped out of a business magazine. They were followed by the Williams parents, Robert and Patricia Williams, who had the kind of understated elegance that came from generations of agricultural wealth. Sophie, darling, my mother swept me into a hug that smelled like expensive perfume. You look wonderful. Marriage suits you already. We're not married yet, Mom. Details, she waved dismissively. The important thing is that you're happy. Are you happy, sweetheart? My father asked, studying my face intently. That depends on what happiness means to you, Dad. He raised an eyebrow but didn't comment. Dinner started normally enough. The parents chatted about business and travel, while the brothers and I made polite conversation. But I could feel the tension building. We all knew what was coming. Finally, during dessert, Patricia Williams brought up the subject we'd all been avoiding. We should discuss the wedding timeline, she said, pulling out her phone. The engagement party is next week, and I think we should aim for a wedding in 2 months. 2 months? I asked. Isn't that a bit fast? Nonsense, my mother said. When you know it's right, why wait? Maybe because we barely know each other, I suggested. You've been living together for a week. Robert Williams pointed out. That's more courtship than most arranged marriages get. Most arranged marriages? Casting. It's quite common in business families, my father said dismissively. Practical marriages often work out better than romantic ones. Practical? I repeated. Is that what this is? Of course. You're combining 2 compatible families with complementary business interests. I looked at David, who nodded slightly. Speaking of business interests, I said casually, I've been learning more about the merger. It's fascinating how it would give our companies control over both agricultural technology and land distribution. The parents exchanged quick glances. It's a smart business move, my father agreed. Especially with all the regulatory uncertainty in agriculture, David added. Dad, you mentioned you've been meeting with lobbyists about that? Robert Williams went very still. Where did you hear that? Around the office. People talk. What people talk exactly? The temperature in the room seemed to drop. I think, I said carefully, that maybe we should have an honest conversation about what's really going on here. What do you mean? Patricia asked, but her smile looked strained. I mean that we know this marriage isn't just about combining companies or helping us find love. We know you've been planning this merger for months, developing technology specifically for Williams farmland, stockpiling supplies, and lobbying on agricultural policy. Complete silence. Finally, my father cleared his throat. Sophie, I think you're reading too much into normal business operations. Normal business operations don't usually involve arranging marriages for your children. The marriage is separate from the business, my mother insisted. Is it though? Marcus asked. Because it seems like the marriage is specifically designed to ensure the business arrangement stays in the family. Which would be convenient, James added, if you were planning to do things that might not be entirely legal. That's a very serious accusation, Robert Williams said coldly. It's not an accusation, I said. It's an observation. You're trying to create a monopoly on food production. And you're using our marriage to make sure no one can break up the partnership. That's ridiculous, Patricia said. Is it? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you've manipulated all 6 of us into an arrangement that benefits your business plans while completely ignoring what we might actually want. What you want? My father asked. Sophie, we're giving you 5 successful, attractive husbands and making you one of the most powerful women in agriculture. What more could you want? Choice, I said simply. I want the choice to make my own decisions about my life. And we want the choice to decide whether we're comfortable facilitating a potential monopoly, David added. The parents looked at each other, and I could practically see them having a silent conversation. Finally, my mother sighed. You're right. Linda, my father warned. No, Richard. They figured it out. They deserve the truth. She turned to face all of us. Yes, this marriage is primarily about the business. Yes, we've been planning it for longer than we told you. And yes, the merger would give us significant control over agricultural production. But, my father added quickly, it's not a monopoly. It's strategic vertical integration. That's the same thing, Sam said dryly. It's legal strategic vertical integration, Robert Williams corrected. Legal doesn't mean ethical, Tyler pointed out. Ethics are a luxury we can't afford, Patricia said. Food production is becoming increasingly concentrated among a few major corporations. If we don't consolidate, we'll be squeezed out entirely. So, instead of fighting concentration, you decided to join it? I asked. We decided to survive, my father said, and to position our families to thrive in the new agricultural landscape. By using us as pawns? By giving you the opportunity to be part of something bigger than yourselves. I looked around the table at everyone, parents trying to justify their manipulation, brothers looking frustrated and angry, myself feeling like I was in the middle of the world's most dysfunctional family meeting. You know what? I said finally. I appreciate the honesty, I really do, but I'm not interested in being part of this. Sophie, my mother started. No, Mom, I understand why you did it, but I'm not going to marry 5 people I barely know to help you corner the market on food production. Neither are we, David said firmly. All of us together, we're not doing this. Boys, Robert Williams said in a warning tone. Dad, we respect what you've built, but we're not going to be part of dismantling fair competition in agriculture, Marcus said. It's not fair competition now, Patricia argued. It's corporate warfare. Then maybe that's a problem that needs to be solved differently, James suggested. Not by creating an even bigger corporation. The silence stretched out uncomfortably. Finally, my father spoke. What exactly are you proposing? I looked at the brothers, who all nodded encouragingly. We call off the marriage, I said. You can still do your merger if you want, but you do it as a business deal, not as a family arrangement. And you accept that we might not want to be part of it. And if we refuse, my mother asked, then we go public with everything, the manipulation, the monopoly plan, all of it. That would destroy both companies, Robert Williams pointed out. Maybe, I agreed, or maybe it would force you to find a better way to compete that doesn't involve market manipulation. Another long silence. Then, surprisingly, my father started laughing. What's so funny? I asked suspiciously. You, he said, wiping his eyes. 6 months ago, Sophie couldn't balance her checkbook. Now she's threatening to take down 2 Fortune 500 companies. People change, Dad. Apparently they do. He looked around the table at the brothers. And you're all in agreement on this? We are, David confirmed. My father looked at Robert Williams, who shrugged. I have to admit, Robert said slowly, I'm impressed. It takes guts to stand up to your parents like this. Does that mean you're calling off the merger? Tyler asked hopefully. Oh no, my mother said with a smile. It means we're renegotiating the terms. What does that mean? I asked warily. It means, my father said, grinning, that if you want to be part of this family business, you're going to earn it. No more arranged marriages, no more manipulation. If you want to work together, you'll do it because you choose to. And if we don't want to work together, then you don't. But the merger goes forward either way, just as a business deal between our companies. I looked at the brothers, who looked as confused as I felt. So, we can call off the marriage? Sam asked. If that's what you want, Patricia confirmed. And there are no consequences? Well, my father said with a smirk. You'll have to deal with the media attention from canceling a very public engagement. And you'll miss out on what could be a very lucrative family business. But no consequences. What's the catch? I asked, because there was definitely a catch. No catch, my mother said innocently. Just one small thing. What? You have to decide tonight. All 6 of you, together. Marriage or no marriage. Business partnership or no business partnership. But you decide as a group, and you stick with the decision. I looked around the table at 5 guys I'd known for exactly 1 week, trying to decide if I wanted to marry them or walk away from the whole situation. "Can we have a minute to discuss this?" David asked. "Of course," my father said. "Take all the time you need. We'll be in the living room." As soon as the parents left, we all started talking at once. "This is insane. Did they just dare us to call their bluff? Are we seriously considering this? What do we actually want here?" "I think," I said, raising my voice to cut through the chatter, "we need to figure out what we're really deciding." "What do you mean?" James asked. "I mean, are we deciding whether to go through with an arranged marriage to facilitate a business deal? Or are we deciding whether 6 people who like each other want to try building something together?" "Those are very different questions," Marcus observed. "Exactly. Because if it's the first one, the answer is obviously no. But if it's the second one, then it gets complicated," David finished. "Do we like each other?" Tyler asked. "I like all of you," I said, honestly. "You're funny and smart and kind, and this week has been more fun than I've had in either of my lives." "Lives?" Sam asked. "Long story. The point is, I do like you. All of you. But liking someone and marrying them are very different things." "What if," David said slowly, "we approach this differently?" "How?" "What if we tell our parents that we're not doing the arranged marriage, but we are interested in seeing where this goes naturally?" "You mean like dating?" I asked. "All of us together," Marcus clarified. "Not arranged, not for business reasons, just because we want to see what happens." That's, I paused, thinking about it, actually not a terrible idea. "It would drive our parents crazy," James pointed out with a grin. "That's a bonus," Tyler said. "But what about the business stuff?" Sam asked. "Do we want to be involved in that at all?" "So, I think," I said carefully, "that we could probably find ways to make their business more ethical if we were involved. Like, what if instead of creating a monopoly, we focused on sustainable agriculture and fair pricing?" "You mean turn their corporate domination plan into something actually beneficial?" Marcus asked. "Why not? We've got the resources and the knowledge. We could probably do more good from inside the system than outside it." David was nodding slowly. "So we tell them no to the arranged marriage, yes to dating each other, and maybe to working together on making their business less evil?" James muttered, but he was smiling. "All in favor of the most complicated relationship experiment in history?" David asked. 5 hands went up immediately. Then, after a moment, mine joined them. "Okay," I said. "Let's go tell our parents that we're rejecting their manipulation but keeping their sons." "That's going to be an interesting conversation," Marcus said. We trooped back into the living room, where our parents were pretending to chat casually while obviously waiting for our decision. "Well?" my mother asked the moment we walked in. "We've decided," David announced, "that we're not going through with the arranged marriage." Both sets of parents looked disappointed, but not particularly surprised. "However," I continued, "we are interested in dating each other and seeing what happens naturally." Now they looked confused. "Dating?" my father repeated. "Yes, Dad. You know, that thing people usually do before they get married, where they spend time together and get to know each other without legal contracts involved?" "All 6 of you?" Patricia asked. "All 6 of us," Tyler confirmed. "That seems, complicated," Robert said. "Most good things are," Sam replied. And Marcus added, "We're interested in working with you on the business, but only if we can make it more focused on sustainable practices and fair market competition." "You want to reform our evil empire from within?" my mother asked, looking amused. "Something like that." My father and Robert Williams exchanged a long look. "This is not what we planned," Robert said finally. "No," my father agreed. "It's better." "Better?" I asked, surprised. "Sophie, 6 months ago you had no interest in business, no ambition beyond your trust fund, and no serious relationships. Now you're proposing to reform corporate agriculture while dating 5 men simultaneously? When you put it like that, it sounds kind of crazy." "It sounds like you finally found something you care about," my mother said softly. "And boys," Patricia added, "you've never shown this much initiative about anything. Usually we have to drag you to business meetings." "Maybe because you've never asked us to help fix problems we actually care about," David pointed out. "Fair enough," Robert conceded. "So," I said, "are we good? No arranged marriage. Yes to complicated dating situation. Maybe to ethical business empire?" "I suppose," my father said slowly, "that if you're all adults making informed decisions together, we can't really object." "Even if those decisions are completely insane?" Patricia asked. "Especially if they're completely insane," my mother said with a grin. Sanity is overrated. Does this mean we still have to do the engagement party? Tyler asked hopefully. Oh no, Patricia said immediately. You absolutely still have to do the engagement party. But we're not engaged. You're pre-engaged, my mother declared. Engaged to be possibly engaged in the future. That's not a real thing, James protested. It is now, my father said cheerfully, and it's going to make great publicity for the company. I looked around at the 5 brothers, who all looked as bewildered as I felt. You know what? I said finally. Fine, we'll do your engagement party for our non-engagement. But I'm wearing whatever I want, and if anyone asks, I'm telling them we're conducting a social experiment. Fair enough, my mother agreed. And no more manipulation, David added firmly. If we're doing this, we're doing it our way. Agreed, both fathers said in unison. Although, Robert added with a smirk, if you think dating 5 people is complicated now, wait until you try planning a wedding for 6 people. We're not planning a wedding, I protested. Yet, my mother said sweetly. Mom! What? I'm just saying, I should probably start looking at venues, just in case. I looked at David, who was trying not to laugh. Your parents are as bad as mine. Worse, he said. At least yours are upfront about their scheming. I can hear you, Patricia called out. We know, we all said in unison. And despite everything, the manipulation, the conspiracy, the completely insane situation I'd found myself in, I realized I was genuinely happy. Sure, I was about to fake engage to 5 guys I'd known for a week in order to reform their family's agricultural empire while navigating the world's most complicated relationship situation. But hey, at least it wasn't boring. And sometimes, not boring was exactly what you needed, even if you'd had to die and be reborn to find it. 6 months later. Sophie, the reporters are here, Janet called from downstairs. Which reporters? I called back, trying to decide between 2 different dresses for tonight's charity gala. All of them. They want to interview the polyamorous power couple about your sustainable agriculture initiative. I groaned. The media had latched onto our story with the enthusiasm of a pack of wolves discovering fresh meat. We'd gone from arranged marriage creates agricultural dynasty to 6-way relationship revolutionizes corporate ethics in the span of 6 months. Tell them we'll be down in 5 minutes, David called from the bathroom where he was fixing his tie. Which 5 minutes? Tyler asked, poking his head into our bedroom. Your 5 minutes or actual 5 minutes? Actual 5 minutes, I promised. We'd moved into a house together 2 months ago, a sprawling place with enough room for everyone to have their own space, but common areas where we could all hang out. It was weird, and wonderful, and occasionally chaotic. But it worked. The business was working too. We'd managed to convince our parents to pivot from monopolize everything to lead the industry in sustainable practices. And it was actually more profitable than their original plan. Turned out consumers really liked the idea of ethically sourced food from companies that treated workers fairly. Ready? Marcus asked, appearing in the doorway with James and Sam behind him. As ready as I'll ever be for explaining our relationship status to the national media, I said, taking David's offered arm. You know, Sam said as we headed downstairs, 6 months ago, if someone had told me I'd be in a polyamorous relationship with my arranged bride, helping run a sustainable agriculture company, and going to charity galas as a media darling, I'd have had them committed. 6 months ago, I said. If someone had told me I'd die choking on ramen and wake up engaged to 5 brothers, I'd probably have believed it, because my life was already pretty weird. Your life was not weird, James protested. You were a completely normal college student. James, I once got locked in a library overnight because I fell asleep in the philosophy section. Normal people don't do that. That's not weird, that's just academic dedication. I also once dated a guy for 3 months before realizing he was actually 2 different guys who looked really similar. Okay, that's weird. Thank you. We made it downstairs where the reporters were waiting, cameras rolling and questions ready. I took a deep breath and stepped into the chaos, flanked by 5 guys who'd gone from strangers to, I still wasn't sure exactly what they were to me. But whatever it was working. Miss Chen, one reporter called out, how do you respond to critics who say your relationship is just a publicity stunt? I grinned, thinking about everything we'd been through to get here. The investigation, the confrontations, the complicated family dynamics, the gradual realization that sometimes the best relationships are the ones that make no sense to anyone else. I'd say, I replied, that this is a publicity stunt. It's the most elaborate one in history. And honestly, who has that kind of time? The reporters laughed, and David squeezed my hand. Yeah, This was definitely not boring. And for someone who died of ramen-related asphyxiation, not boring was exactly what I'd been looking for, even if I'd had to get reborn into someone else's life to find it.